Hello, sword people. Welcome to the Sword Guy podcast. This is your host, Dr. Guy Windsor, consulting swordsman, teacher, and writer. Join me for interviews with historical martial arts instructors and experts from a wide range of related disciplines as we discuss swords, history, training, and bringing the joy of historical martial arts into our modern lives. I hope you enjoy this greatest hit episode of the show. You can find all the episodes at swordschool.com/podcast, and there's a direct link in the description to this episode's show notes. On with the show. I'm here today with Emilia Skirmuntt, a historical martial arts instructor and a virologist, who I can imagine has all sorts of nasty stories about viruses to tell. And of course, everybody these days thinks they're an expert. So we'll get into that in the interview. So without further ado, Emilia, welcome to the show.
Hi, it is very nice to, meet you as well and talk to you today.
Hey, so whereabouts are you?
I'm in Oxford at the moment, so in the UK. So I'm originally from Poland, but I moved to the UK 11 years ago, and right now I live in Oxford.
Okay. And is that because you work at the university there?
Yes, I work at the University of Oxford.
Okay. Now, I was born in Cambridge, and so I'm very sorry, but it's sort of baked into my DNA that Oxford is an absolute stinkhole and no one should ever go there. But I am reliably informed that that's not true. So do you like living in Oxford?
I really like being in Oxford. It is a very nice city. Before I live in London. And I also like London, but right now when I move to the smaller city, which is Oxford, I can see why London is very, very tiring and hectic.
Yeah. Well, you should definitely also have a look at Cambridge, because
yes.
Cambridge has all the good bits of Oxford and none of the bad ones. So.
Yeah, I had once a comparison, which is amazing. It is like Oxford is like Cambridge if it would be built by Disney. So.
Right, there you go. Okay. Now, let me just get us gently closer to our topic. I ask most of my guests this. How did you get into historical martial arts? What drew you to it?
So, that was a long time ago, because I was 16 at the time. Mm-hmm. And I really liked fantasy and role-playing games and stuff like that. And I also liked swords. And at some point my friend at school said that she's going for training, sword fighting training. And I went with her and I just loved it. And since then I'm doing it.
So that was in Poland?
That was in Poland, yes. That was in Poland, and that was right now, many years ago, because it will be, I think, almost 20 years ago, maybe 19 years ago. Yes.
Okay. So, if you don't mind my asking, who were you training with in Poland?
So, I don't think they exist anymore. The name of the group was Lorica, and it was also Weapons Academy. Right now, the instructors from this group also have a fencing school in Warsaw, but it's not the same group.
Okay. So who do you train with in Oxford?
I have my own school here. It's the School of the Swords, and I'm the leading instructor. So I'm training with, not only myself but my students.
Excellent. Okay, so you started your own historical fencing club.
Yes.
Actually, the last person I interviewed for the show, and his interview will probably come out before yours, he's also in Oxford. His name is Milo Thurston. He runs the Lineker School of Defence. You must know him.
I know Milo, but we don't have that much of contact, to be fair. Well,
no, because he's a early 18th century Napoleonic sort of person, and a small sword man and a Hope's New Method sort of instructor. So I take it you are not doing mostly small sword. You're doing rapier and longsword and...
Yes, we're doing quite a selection. So the main weapon which we are training with in fact, is longsword, Fiore longsword.
Okay, now you're speaking my language.
And I love Fiore. And we do also wrestling and dagger.
Oh, you have to. It's part of the system.
Exactly. So that's what we mainly train with. But I'm also an instructor of rapier, and I also do tomahawk.
Okay.
And side swords. So quite a selection.
Okay. So I imagine you're teaching your own interpretation of Fiore. Is that correct?
I would say so, yes.
Okay. And as to rapier, what sort of rapier are you doing?
Mostly Italian rapier, but I've done also some like war rapier, so Saviolo, which you can argue it's Italian, but
yeah, kind of.
Well, it's also German side sword because that's war rapier. It's so complicated. So yeah, I also done some of it.
Yeah, okay. Historical martial arts systems and historical weapons very often don't fit neatly into our nice modern categories, right? I mean, none of the Italian rapier masters ever referred to a rapier in any of their books ever. It's just the sword.
Yeah,
do this with your sword.
That's true.
So what rapier sources do you study?
It is again a selection. I looked at Gigantes. I like Giganti. It's yes. Very easy, especially for beginners. And to be honest, I have a selection of quite a few of Italian masters, and I just mix and match.
Okay. All right. So I'm guessing that, okay, most of us that study rapier, we look at like Fabris and Capoferro and Giganti, and those are like the main sources, and it's the same basic instructions. Some have different like takes on specific actions, and there'll be some actions in some books and not in others. Fabris seems to have this sort of rather odd mechanics preferences.
Yeah, if you want to hurt your back.
But I mean, I can see sort of teaching a kind of generic, this is early 17th century Italian rapier, and you're drawing from all these sources. It's not my approach. I like to be very much by the book. So on this day we are doing Capoferro rapier, and it's like this, and this is what it's like in the book, and because I'm extremely pedantic.
No, I agree. I sometimes doing that as well. It's sometimes that when I'm preparing a lesson and I'm, for example, doing Fabris or something like that, then in my mind I remember another play from another book which quite well matches the topic of the lesson, and then just try to also incorporate that into the lesson. So that's that. Sure,
fair enough. And so you started your club. Sorry, you said at the School of the Sword. Is that correct?
Yes. We are a branch of the School of the Sword.
Okay. So that's Fran Terminiello's kind of umbrella school. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. If you don't mind me asking, how does that actually work?
You mean being a branch?
Yeah, because I have branches all over the place, and I started out sort of trying to keep them as like recognizably branches of the school, so that anyone who showed up would go, oh, okay, this is Guy's sword school thing, and sort of like a franchise almost. It wasn't a business, but like a franchise. But I gave it up because it didn't really suit the character of the clubs that were forming and wanting to join. But I don't have strong feelings about it either way. So I'm just curious as to how that system works. And I had Fran on the show like last year. She was like my third guest, I think, and I should have asked her then.
I mean, we are not very very strict when it goes to branches. For example, because we have 3 branches at the moment, one in Godalming, one in Reading, and right now one in Oxford. And the branch in Godalming and Reading, they teach mostly side sword and rapier.
Right.
But I said that I want to teach mainly longsword, obviously some side sword and rapier as well, but start with longsword. And it was fine. So we are a bit different than the other branches, but again, I don't know how to really say. We are 3 separate clubs, but we have some events when we meet also, or our members from each branch can go to the trainings to the other branches if they want. And there are sparrings, obviously when there is no pandemic, there are sparrings at each branch every month as well. So it is good because it is quite a lot of lessons, quite a lot of sparrings in 3 different locations, and everybody can go to them. So if somebody wants, they can do a lot of sword fighting every week.
Excellent. I guess because Oxford, Godalming and Reading aren't that far from each other, are they?
Yeah, that's true. It's like very easy to reach by train from each location to the other location. It is very easy.
Okay. So someone who's a member of the School of the Sword can just go to any of these classes whenever. Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess you have some sort of shared admin.
Yes, we have the boards, we have shared also money.
Okay.
So we can also book the halls, of course. And also we have, thanks to that, we have our club kit. So each club have their own kit, and not every club has that. Sometimes members need to buy their own stuff from the beginning. Sure. And the good thing is that we have that just in our club. So the beginners' lessons are quite easy.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference when you can actually equip the beginners properly.
Yeah.
Like the easiest thing I found, the unintended consequence I found of getting a permanent training space is that students started leaving their swords and masks there. And then I invented a rule, which was if it's dusty or rusty, anybody can use it, and it goes on the beginner's rack, right? So because people get enthusiastic and they buy a weapon and they leave it at the salle and then they get busy or whatever, their weapon gets dusty, it goes on the beginner's rack. Of course, they can come and reclaim it any time.
Yeah.
They still own it. But with enough turnover and enough sort of people coming through, within about a year, we could equip a beginner's course of like 25 students with steel long swords and masks. Yeah, it was amazing. It was absolutely, it was completely unexpected. That's not why I rented a salle. And it would have been cheaper just to buy all of that equipment because salles are really expensive. But it's like one of the side benefits of having a permanent space. And also, of course, reducing the barriers to entry for the students so that they don't have to buy anything, or they just show up and everything is provided, and so they can try it out. And we have some students who trained for like 4 or 5 years without ever buying a sword because they had no money, but it didn't matter because they could just use the club kit. Yeah,
that's true. So that's having club kit, or at least like kit they can borrow, is very good. So that's basically how the School of the Sword works. We don't have, sadly, permanent space, so
it's expensive.
That's a big problem sometimes. But maybe I guess in Oxford it would be super expensive. So.
Well, yeah, I can imagine. Some nice big training hall in Oxford is not going to be cheap. I mean, in Helsinki. I managed to find a space that was like a 20-minute bus ride from the centre of town in a kind of dodgy neighbourhood, the sort of neighbourhood where you probably wouldn't want to buy an apartment. And it's in a like industrial building with like car fixing garages on the ground floor, and we were on the floor above, and it was great. It was like cheap and accessible, but it was cheap because it was in a horrible neighbourhood and it was like a 20-odd minute bus ride out of town. I think Yeah, Oxford's a bit posh for that sort of thing.
Yes, it is. And the places which would be cheaper are not very well accessible without a car. And that's also would be a problem.
Yeah, that's sort of an English thing. I noticed when we moved here, like 5 years ago from Finland, my intention was we could live without a car. And after like 9 months of my children missing out on stuff because no one could give us a ride or there weren't any taxis or whatever, and it was just so damn inconvenient that I bought a car. And now we have two. It's like, that was not the intention. I was like, this will be great. This will be super green and environmentally friendly. And but no, in England, you need a car.
Unfortunately.
Unless you live in the centre of London, in which case...
Yes, I wanted to say that.
Yeah, my sister lives in near Hampstead, and I don't think she's ever owned a car.
It's in London, it's even like... It's not good to have a car because it's hard to get anywhere. You need to pay additional taxes. Yep. And also, if you want to get out of London, you will probably spend more time trying to get out of London than to get from London to this place you want to go.
That's right. Yeah, much better. Like, Ipswich is an hour from the centre of London, right? If I get to the train station here, I am an hour from Liverpool Street, right? It's like super convenient. Driving, oh my God, it's just it's a mess. Anyway, we sort of got a little bit off topic there. Let me gently sort of wiggle us back. Listeners will forgive us, I am sure. Okay, you're a virologist, and there is a viral plague going on, which is kind of awkward. No, right. Okay. I have no idea what that's like, but I imagine that it's a bit like, being a medievalist, going to see a movie like A Knight's Tale or whatever, and just seeing all these complete misunderstandings of medieval culture, medieval history, and knights and armor and all that sort of stuff on the screen for a couple of hours, and it's pretty dreadful. But you can get up and leave anytime you want, but you are entirely surrounded by this constant barrage of people who know absolutely nothing about virology spouting on about viruses and how they work. Is that fair?
That is very fair. I really want somebody to let me out from the cinema. But it is tiring at the moment. After more than 1.5 years, still everybody thinks that they're experts in virology, epidemiology, and everything close to it, like biology as well. So sure. It is hard. And from the beginning, I was also trying to engage a little bit more into science communication with public and the media. And I must say, I was very successful in that because right now I'm giving interviews to like big TV outlets and newspapers almost every day. Oh, I don't know how that happened. But for example, after this podcast recording, I have Sky News live interviews.
Okay, so this is like a warm-up for Sky.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I'll be asked to give opinions to TV shows and what have you, but what do you wish everyone knew about viruses? Other than the fact that they can't tell the time or the date, and so they don't know when it's supposed to be safe for us to go out.
Yeah, I wish that just even basics, really, and that first of all that viruses evolve like everything, and also that viruses will evolve more if they will infect more people because they cannot evolve without hosts, without infecting people. I think that's the main thing. But it would be nice if people just know the basics of biology because they don't.
That's true.
And it would be very nice if people who try to give their opinions, or people who try to tell what's true and what's not, at least have some understanding of basic concepts, because at the moment it's just very hard to explain to people how science works, even because because like WHO said that we have pandemic, like coronavirus pandemic, and also infodemic because of all these totally false stuff which is out there, especially in the social media. And it is sometimes even hard for me or other scientists to tell what is true and what's not, because these people who create this fake news try to put some truth and just also a little, and also a lot of fake stuff, and just mix it. And then sometimes the stuff which looks real, it's not. And there is so much stuff out there like that it is sometimes hard even for the experts to say what is real, and it takes a lot of time for us to just check every single information to see if that's true, what's true, what's not, and that takes a lot of time. Sadly, nobody pays for it.
Yeah, it does seem really unfortunate you should have to spend any time at all dealing with that, like this deliberate misinformation. I mean, there's plenty of ignorance, sort of genuine, honest ignorance, like, you know, most people haven't studied biology to any level, and most people haven't ever studied viruses at all. I have never studied viruses at all. So the question then, I guess, would be, okay, you have reputable sources, but the thing is, because people are finding new stuff out all the time, those sources change their opinions. So the stuff they were telling you to do a year ago, they're not telling you to do the same way anymore, right? So, obviously they don't know what they're talking about then, because the truth is unchanging. And I think that's what maybe bothered me the most, because it reflects a little bit on, well, it's like a reflection of what happens in any field where you're learning stuff all the time, historical martial arts being a great example. I mean, you remember what things were like 20 years ago, right? We knew absolutely nothing, okay? And so imagine if you express an opinion in 2004 and you're expected to hold the exact same opinion in 2014. That's just absurd.
Yeah,
right?
That's true. And that's the problem as well, because people don't know how science works. And for them, if something if experts say one thing and say that's the fact, that's how it is, or that's based on what we know right now, in their minds, it is, no, that's unchangeable, as you said, and that's exactly how it is. But science is something which changes all the time. With more data, the science will also change how we understand things. And unfortunately, people are unaware of that and not familiar with the ways science works. And for them, it makes the science less, at least makes the experts maybe less
authoritative.
Yeah, I think that's the right word.
Okay, so you suggest that people don't know how science works. I have a vague idea of how science works. I've read a bunch of books. I did some science at university, but it was a long time ago. So for my benefit and for the listeners who are perhaps not professional scientists, how does science work?
Well, that's a very very broad question, so it depends on the science. But if we are talking about biological sciences, for example, or
let's simplify things and say, how do biological sciences work?
So again, if we look at the new concept, our first hypothesis might not be true. Our first ideas might not be true, but we need to check if that's how it works. So we are just performing experiments or observations or things like that. In the beginning, these observations or these data might confirm our hypothesis because we seen what we are observing only on a small sample of data. So that might be true to some extent, but if we will make the sample bigger and bigger, and we have more and more data, we might see the trend change. And then we will see that our initial hypothesis was not true. But that needs time and that needs a lot of work. And we can see that also with viruses and how we understand pandemics, epidemics. If we want to compare, for example, pandemics, right now with novel coronavirus, it's novel coronavirus because it's with us, it's in a human population only for 1 year and 8 months, which is not so long. And with influenza virus, we have a lot of data at the moment from many, many years. We were observing it for at least, I think, 50 or 60 years, like in a proper way. And from these 60 years, we can see the trends in a lot clearer way than from like 1.5 year or 1 year and 8 months, which we seen in this coronavirus pandemic. So unfortunately, when it goes to coronaviruses, we still don't have answers for many questions, but hopefully we'll get them with time. But yeah, that's still, with viruses, it's still very hard.
Okay, I think perhaps the thing I want to just amplify is you have a hypothesis, so you test it. So the hypothesis, you have to be able to falsify that hypothesis, right? You have to be able to prove it wrong. Yeah. Otherwise it doesn't work as a hypothesis.
Yes.
And early stage experiments may appear to confirm the hypothesis, and so you get all excited and, naughty newspapers run irresponsible headlines, and then as more data comes in, you find out that no, actually that hypothesis is incorrect.
Yes, It can be also the other way around. Maybe more data will come in and the hypothesis will still be true. Yeah. So that can also happen. But the thing is that science change. It's not constant. Right. It will change if we will get more data.
I have an analogy for you, right? If you're interpreting, for example, one of Fiore's plays, right, and you come up with this brilliant idea, okay? So you test it with your loyal student of many years. And because that loyal student of many years is entirely used to basically making you look good in front of the class, because you've demonstrated with them a lot, right? This amazing new technique appears to work. But then when you try it against someone who's actually really trying to hit you, and is not your loyal student of many years, you get smacked in the face. And so you have to go back and perhaps rethink your hypothesis. Is that a reasonable historical martial arts analogy for what we've just discussed?
Yes. If we want to have analogy in martial arts, I think that's the perfect one.
Well, honestly, I'm happy to talk virology as much as I am to talk swords, but I think, for the average listener, they're expecting some swords to at least be mentioned every now and then.
Yes.
So if I can just keep them happy by making a sword analogy here and there, I think we can carry on talking about the viral stuff because, and this is fabulous, right? Okay, you are a specialist in virus-like genes in bat genomes, actual bats, right?
Yes.
And okay, there is a sort of theory that some bloke in China bit the head off a bat and got infected. Well, not necessarily bit the head off a bat, but got infected by a bat and whatever. And I've lobbed this ball gently in your direction. Do what you like with it.
Can I just throw it away? No.
Yeah, of course you can.
No. When it comes to the theory, this very weird idea people have. So viruses which are present in animals jump to human population, maybe not all the time, but it happens.
Sure.
And also with viruses like Ebola, we've seen that. With coronavirus, it's a bit different because right now it's human virus and not anymore animal virus because it mutated and changed. So right now it's human virus. But when it goes to coronaviruses, their main reservoir species is bat. That's why. Okay. Probably it might have been either this virus jumping to another animal from bats, and then by contact with humans, for example, on these wet markets, it got into human population, it's infected a person there, because obviously wet markets are not best known from the hygienic, from their hygiene and stuff.
I think quite a few of the listeners won't know what a wet market is.
Oh, okay. So wet market is this big markets in China where they sell animal products and live animals. Also the exotic ones. So yeah.
Okay. So the virus went from a bat to some animal, and at one of these wet markets, perhaps it went from that animal into a person, and then it kind of exploded from there.
Yes, it might have been the shorter route. It might have just jumped from bat to the person, but for example, in a cave or somewhere like that, where people have some contact with bats. But in China, they don't eat bats.
No, I know they don't. But Ozzy Osbourne has bitten the head off a bat live on stage, so maybe it was an Ozzy Osbourne fan.
It's not Ozzy Osbourne's fault.
No, I know it's not. Okay, now this is entirely for my own curiosity, but from what I understand of what I've read about the research you're doing, when a bat is infected by a virus, it copies bits of that virus into its DNA, or bits of the viral DNA gets copied into the bat's DNA, and then that provides some kind of immune capacity later on. Have I understood it basically right?
Yes, although it's not only in bats.
Okay.
It's in fact, all the organisms can do that, and we see that also in humans. We also have some genes which help us to fight the infection from the viruses which are out there, and we just stole it from viruses and used it in our own immunity, but not only, because we have some other genes which we again stole from viruses after they infected us, which one of them, for example, help us memorize things. And
you're kidding?
No.
Tell me. Explain. This is fascinating.
I know, that's my research.
All right, yeah, please, go ahead.
So I'm talking about the gene, it is called ARC, so arch. And this gene is a co-opted viral gene, and it also help us memorize things, but also probably help us thinking that, and maybe that's why
the origin of consciousness.
Yes, exactly.
Holy crap!
It is cool, isn't it?
That is incredibly cool. So basically, some early human got infected by this virus, and their body absorbed some of that viral DNA into its own genome, and that actually triggered the skills of memorization and thought and what have you.
Maybe not early human, but ancestor of humans, or something like that, or animals even.
How do you know?
Because there's a lot of techniques to just compare. Mm-hmm. You're looking through the genome of the species of different animals. Also, it is also in plants, but not this exact gene. But I'm talking about these viral genes. So we can look through the genome of certain species, and then you are picking up sequences which are similar to viruses.
Okay.
Like genetic sequences, which are similar to viruses. And then you can compare these sequences to known viruses. And sometimes they're so similar, and there are some additional features which would tell us that this is a viral sequence, this is co-opted viral sequence, which is in the genome. There is a lot of techniques to do that. They're mostly mostly bioinformatic and statistical and mathematical modeling.
Sure, we probably shouldn't go into the details of that because I would have difficulty following you. But how do we know that the art gene is kind of connected to memory and intelligence and consciousness?
So this gene, in a very, very basic explanation, is involved into creating these little vesicles which jumps between neurons in our brain, and that's how our thoughts are created.
Okay, so what does that gene do in a virus?
It creates the vesicles which encapsulate the viral genome.
Okay, so the little protein packet that the virus is running around in. Basically, that's made with the same gene enables the virus to build that as in our brains enables us to make those little packets that fly around and holy crap. I had no idea that this was going to be such an interesting interview. Or that we spend most of it on viruses. Listeners, bear with me. No, it's just fantastic. Okay. Now, you probably know that I have patrons who support the show. And one of the things that they get to do is to suggest questions for guests. And, as regular listeners will already know, and as obviously you know, but new listeners might not, is that all my guests also get to see their questions in advance, and you don't have to answer anything that you don't want to answer. This apparently made the list. So one of my patients asks, she's asking about inclusivity in the lab, such as making labs accessible for disabled people. And so I imagine you have a lot of experience in labs, so you can maybe speak to that. And I'm curious as to how that extends into the historical martial arts environment as well. So what are your thoughts?
That's a tricky question. Obviously, at the universities at the moment, inclusivity when it goes to disabled people is very important. And most of the labs, which are new labs, which are built, they're trying to build them in a way that everybody can get to the lab, everybody can work. And I think that's very good. In some other older labs out there, unfortunately, there is nothing like that. But I think that the things that right now are changing. At least I can speak only for the UK, obviously, because I work mainly here. But the things in science, at least, trying to be very, very inclusive. So for science I can say that. For martial arts, it's also hard because obviously many of us who teach don't have formal education in teaching, maybe like that.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, me too. Apart from teaching at the university courses in biology or something, but that's not the same as teaching movement and fencing and martial arts. So that's something which I think is might be missing, because with disabled people, you need to understand that they need some other exercises, and you need to be more careful. And I think that's in these cases, this at least formal education in some kind of, I don't know, movement or physical education would be quite good. I would be a bit worried and scared that I will just injure such a person.
Okay. I've taught people with various disabilities, and I have no formal training in it at all. And so what I did is I make it absolutely clear that if there's an exercise that we're doing that's not right for them, they shouldn't do it. And I tell that to older students. You might have a slightly dodgy knee, not actually disabled, but maybe a deep squat is bad for you, so you shouldn't do it. So the first thing for me was like normalizing, adjusting what we're doing, and not having to like slavishly copy everything that the instructor does or you get shouted at. That's like the first thing. And then, I mean, the disabled people who've come to me for training have all been really interested in swords, obviously, but also vastly more experienced in their disability than anybody else. So I just asked them, what can they do? How do they want to approach this? And so I provide like the historical and the martial side of it, and they tell me how they can apply that with the disabilities they have.
I think that's a very good approach. And I think that's since in martial arts we see so many different people, because obviously there are people who done some training before, there are people who never even do anything else than walking from work to their home, and they don't do any other exercises. We need to be quite flexible when it goes to the thinking about the levels.
Right. And we're not training people to have a kind of professional career making tons of money as an exponent of that particular art. Like, unlike, for example, perhaps a gymnastics coach, where, you can actually make a living as a world-class gymnast if you get that far.
Yeah.
So it doesn't actually matter how good a person gets by any sort of objective standard of skill, because there is no real objective standard. And, if they are enjoying what they're doing and they are improving from their own perspective, that's more than sufficient, I would say.
No, that's right. From my own experience, because obviously that's not something very. I wouldn't compare it to the full disability person on who couldn't walk. But for example, I cannot see on one eye.
Okay.
Which is a bit hard when you think about fencing.
Yeah, because you've only got one eye left. I had a student in a class I was teaching a few weeks ago, and there weren't enough like fencing masks and what have you. So we were doing stuff slowly and carefully. It was, shall we say, reasonably safe, but he went off to the side and was basically doing something else with somebody else. And I came over to find out, what was going on. And he's like, I've lost the vision in this eye. I can't afford to risk that one. So I'm just going to do this instead. Is that right? And I was like, yeah, fine. Okay. Let me know if you need any help, and off you go.
Yeah. So when it goes to like being one-eyed, you don't have this depth perception as well.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I found that when instructor didn't really know about that or didn't think about that during training, I was getting quite annoyed. Not at the instructor, but at myself, that I cannot do something or something is not working. So I think also that we should take that into consideration when train people like that.
Absolutely. So, I mean, that's lack of depth perception is an interesting problem, because, you can see, I've done experiments with like fencing with one eye blacked out and stuff. So, I don't know what it's like not to lack vision in one eye, but I know what it's like to fence without depth perception, and it's really hard. So what do you do, if you don't mind my asking, what do you do? So let's say you're fencing rapier, for example, and you are, what do you measure the distance with? How do you make sure you're standing in the right place?
That's something which I don't even right now notice. I think it's more of I just learned to try to just compensate for that. And I don't even, for me it's even hard to say how I'm compensating for that, but it works. But it's what, like 20 years.
Right, yeah, fair enough. So you just sort of,
yeah.
you have these like unconscious workarounds and...
Things like that. I also tend to be quite aggressive fencer and shorten the distance very quickly.
Okay. That would help.
Yes, it does.
Excellent. Okay. Now, cookery. Here's a sudden left turn out of nowhere. We talked about viruses, we talked about fencing, we talked about fencing with one eye. Cookery. The Corgi, the princess, and the kitchen.
Yes.
Okay. Now, people who've been in my classes and who maybe regular listeners, I used to be a cabinet maker, and I'm forever making analogies for making things out of wood is exactly like historical martial arts, which, strictly speaking, it's not. But there are so many sort of crossovers and what have you. Actually, funnily enough, when I was doing like physiology and what have you at university, I was constantly thinking about things like how enzymes, like how an amylase enzyme will sit on a starch thing, and what it's like. Okay, it's built the right shape out of these amino acids, creating this which is exactly like how you put together a piece of furniture, and it's shape that makes it work. So, I'm forever. I'm an analogy person. So, do cookery and swordsmanship complement each other?
I would say I never thought about it like that, and I would say that cooking is more like science. So I'm afraid I will go back to virology now.
Okay. Yeah, no, I have a brilliant book. You must know it. It's called On Food and Cooking by... It's like the origin of the whole molecular gastronomy movement. It's absolutely brilliant.
I haven't read it. I heard about that.
I will look it up and put it in the show notes. Yeah. And I'll send you a link before that, obviously.
Yes, please. I would say that I never thought about sword fighting as cooking, so I'm not sure if I can say anything about that. But again, I would say that cooking is a science in a way. Like sure. There is a lot of chemistry, there is physics. Yeah. That would be similar to science.
Okay, but also I guess like science, you have to have that kind of artistic flair. You need to have like flashes of insight and what if we try this with that, and
that's right. In that sense, yes, of course, that would be very similar to every art. If we can say that cooking is also an art, if we will see all these chefs out there making these very weird dishes.
Okay, so do you actually have a corgi?
Yes, she's there.
She's sleeping behind you. Okay, yes, we have a floof on the show. Excellent. It's a very cute sleeping corgi, sleeping under a table.
Yes, she's very old right now. She's 13 years old.
That's pretty old. Okay. Yeah, so are you the princess then?
I mean, my family kind of is from Lithuania, where they had a title, yes. Okay,
so the corgi is the actual corgi, and you're the princess and the kitchen. So what does okay, for people who don't know what on earth I'm talking about, what's this corgi princess kitchen thing?
Okay,
what is the corgi, the princess, and the kitchen?
So it's my cooking blog. Okay. I stopped. I have it's on Instagram and also on Facebook, but I'm planning to make a proper page at some point.
Okay.
I needed to stop doing it. I'm still cooking. I'm cooking every day.
Well, you gotta eat, right?
Yes, but you can also, buy something in Sainsbury's or Tesco or other shop. But I really hate takeaways, so.
Yeah.
But I'm still cooking. I just don't have time to take photos and make descriptions, because writing a blog takes a lot of time.
It really does.
Yes, you probably know.
I do know. I've had a blog for about 10 years, and
Yeah.
it takes a lot of time.
So I'm planning to start doing that again. Because I was doing my doctorate, I was finishing my doctorate. I just didn't have time at all, so
Sure.
I needed to stop for a couple of years. But right now, it's finished, and I have my defense on the 30th of September. So.
Oh, good luck! Okay, all right. Shall I tell you about my first defense? I got an absolute. My external examiner, very politely, very correctly, tore me a new one. I nearly died. Right? It was just the most horrific experience. But I just managed to get onto make these corrections and we'll re-examine you. Right? So I did. I made the corrections, and there's all sorts of problems finding another, because that external examiner couldn't do it again for some reason, and stuff happens, what have you. And they finally found another external examiner, and I kind of made it through on the second attempt. But, okay, the most useful thing was when I was going off for the second time, absolutely terrified, because I thought I was going to get slaughtered again, right? My wife said to me, "It's all right, darling. It doesn't matter whether you pass or fail, because no matter what happens, I'm never calling you Dr. Windsor." And I was like, "Oh, wow, fair enough then." And I just relaxed completely.
So that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. So actually, by the time this episode comes out, you will have had your defence, I suspect. I'm not quite sure. It'll be either slightly before or slightly after. So I will check in with you and see whether we need to upgrade the title for the show.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Really well. Good luck. And this is for your viruses in bats research.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly this one.
Fantastic. All right. And now I have a couple of questions that I ask everyone. I don't know. You probably haven't listened to the show, have you?
I didn't have time.
No, that's fine.
I went through it.
Most of my guests don't listen to the show. In fact, I have noticed that most people on the planet don't listen to the show.
Okay.
Right? It's fine. I don't mind. Because the people who do listen to it seem to really like it. So that's enough. All right, okay, so first question. What is the best idea you have never acted on?
Yeah, I was thinking about this question when you sent it to me. And then I thought I act on almost all my ideas, which is probably not good.
No, it's very good. Well, okay. I think it's coming up to about half of my guests answer with something like that. And I think it's the sort of people who I end up interviewing tend to have done interesting things that I'll have noticed or other people have noticed and said, "Guy, you've really got to get this person on the show." And that comes from acting on ideas generally. So there isn't any sort of little passion project in the back of your head that you sort of...
That's really, there are things which I wanted to do, but right now in retrospect, I don't think that these would be a good idea.
Okay.
So when you ask me about the best ideas, then I've done quite a lot of things I came up with. When it goes to the ideas which probably in retrospect wouldn't be that good, I, for example, haven't bought a horse, even though I was planning.
Horses are lovely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I take it you ride, yeah?
Well, for a while right now, I didn't have opportunity because I was doing my research, but I really want to go back to it. I was riding since I was 12 years old.
Okay. Okay, if anyone's listening to the show who lives near Oxford and has a horse that Emilia could borrow, that would be lovely. Just get in touch and I'll...
Yeah, please.
Yeah, well, but horses are like ridiculously expensive to keep and look after. And I have a friend, Jason Kingsley, who has modern TV history YouTube channel thing. And yeah, he has, I think, like 7 or 8 horses. And he spends about 4 or 5 hours a day looking after the horses.
Yeah, that's also the problem. They're quite like high maintenance.
They are very, which is why rich people had them, and then they had poor people to look after them for them.
yeah, something like that. But at least it's lower maintenance than children. So
True. I've looked after both. I've never owned a horse, but I have some experience of horses, and I have 2 kids, and yeah, particularly in the early days. By the time they get to like 12, 13, it's actually they're pretty low maintenance. Well, at least mine are. But yeah, when they're little, they are. Okay, when somebody who doesn't have kids says they are either tired or busy, us parents, we just kind of smile and nod and yeah, okay. A bit like you listening to somebody talking about virology who has got all of their information from Facebook.
Yeah. I wanted to mention that might be quite similar situation.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So my last question: if you had an unreasonably large sum of money to spend on improving historical martial arts worldwide, and if you want to say, actually, I'd spend it on virology instead, that's fine. How would you spend it?
No, I think I love virology, but I have enough of virology right now, so I can spend it on swords.
Okay.
I think, but worldwide.
Yeah, and the thing is, you can't just buy yourself some nice swords with the money. You actually have to. You've been in the historical martial arts world for a while. You have seen it, and obviously, as with anything, it could be improved in various ways. How would you improve it?
As we talked before, it's very expensive to get like a permanent hole. And also, I think I would try to make the proper branches of the school in like some places, of course in Oxford, but also around UK, but maybe also in Europe, with their own permanent halls, but not even rented, but just bought. And I know people who done that, like not branches, but like at least there are schools in the cities. For example, in Warsaw, there is one.
Sure.
So do that, and also just to create a safe space, a very inclusive space, also for like fences, which are in minorities, for example, for women or for non-binary people. So I would try to do that, because I think that at the moment there is a bit of a problem. It is better than it was before,
sure,
but there is a bit of a problem with inclusivity, especially in some parts.
You're being very diplomatic.
I am.
I know exactly what you're talking about. The average listener might not. Well, okay. Why do you think this podcast has slightly over 50% female guests?
No, I think you are very, very good at that, and I'm not.
But no, because I was thinking, what the hell can I do about it? Right? What can I actually do about it? I thought, well, okay, I'll start a podcast and make sure that the people I invite on are not all middle-aged straight white dudes, right? Because while a bunch of middle-aged straight white dudes tended to got into this sort of thing a long time ago, and so they are overrepresented in the kind of the senior levels of the art for good historical reasons, or sort of for the natural reasons, if you like. It prevents, or not prevents, it discourages perhaps people who are not middle-aged straight white dudes from taking it up.
the visibility is very important.
Absolutely.
And also, we have free schools here in Oxford, and obviously one is very small and concentrates on their own thing, on their own stuff, like these Napoleonic fighting styles, and there are two bigger ones, my school, and there is another one, Oxford Sword and Staff. And Oxford Sword and Staff people are lovely, they're great. They started as a very small school, just founded by people who loved sword fighting. They didn't have any money, it was just like study group in the beginning, I think. And obviously we had more money from the other branches of our school.
Right.
And I noticed that the main core people in the Oxford Sword and Staff, not main core people, maybe the majority of new students are middle-aged white guys because they have more money.
Right.
And in our school, the majority of people are students who don't have money, are younger people, and are women.
Excellent.
So you can see the differences. I'm not saying that Oxford Sword and Staff is doing something wrong. I'm just saying that because of these differences in like...
Right, because your club has the money to subsidise the beginners so that anyone can start, you get a much more diverse group, whereas if you have to have money to start, you get a much more restricted group.
Yeah, and I think that's very, in this sense, very visible when you compare both clubs in the same city, really, and not that far from each other. We like each other. We don't.
I get it. You're all friends.
And also. As I said before, visibility is very important. And I was asked several times by some fencers, some instructors, how to make it better, like how to help their club grow, but not only with the students, with male students, but also to attract to their club some other students, like women or like
other demographics,
minorities, not only, for example, white people. So my main like advice was just find some female woman, instructor, and like do some classes, for example, with her, or like seminars or things like that, and so your students, or even people who look through your website and see the pictures, see that there is not only first guys there, or not only guys, not only women as students, but there is also women can also be instructors. Women can also do stuff like that. So I think that's important.
Many years ago, I had a meeting with like some of my senior students, almost all of whom were men, saying, look, why are almost all of you men? What happens to the women? We get like 30-40% women coming in the beginners courses. Where do they go? What's going wrong? One of my students said, well, Guy, you always demonstrate with us. I was like, well, yeah, because you're the most technically accomplished, and so I'll get the best technical demonstration with someone with more. And then he said, but, okay, what that does is when you demonstrate with someone, you are selecting them out of the student body and you're basically holding them up as an example. If you only ever do that with blokes, there will be an assumption that only blokes can get up to that level, right? Even if it's not spoken, it's just a sort of... And I was like, well, okay, so what if I preferentially demonstrate with women? Will you guys be all right with that? And they were like, yeah, that's fine. So, okay, I tried it, and within a year, we had significantly increased the proportion of women who were staying on past the beginner's course. But, no one told me this at the beginning. I didn't know. So for the first 10 years or so, I was like, prioritizing like the best technical demonstration over the demonstration that's going to get the results I actually want in the student body.
Yeah, it is a problem that sometimes instructors, it's not only instructor problems, sometimes women are scared because they think that they need to do it perfectly, and they compare themselves to the guys there. Okay. And even the more accomplished or more experienced fencers, and they think that they cannot demonstrate in front of the class because it won't be perfect, it won't be good, and they are just scared. And just we mentioned before that I do this science communication for Sky News and stuff like that. I'm probably there not only because I'm amazing expert and virologist, but I'm also a woman and not just this white middle-aged Oxford professor who people can see on TV. I'm younger, and I'm a woman, and that's why they also ask me to comment on these things to show that in sciences women can also be experts.
Well, yeah, absolutely. In fact, they can in fencing too, as the guest list for my show clearly demonstrates. But also, my first fencing coach was a woman, and it was Gail Rudge, and she was obviously she was, I guess. Well, to me, she looked ancient. She was probably 40 odd.
Oh my God!
When I was 13, and she was a highly skilled fencing coach, and I was a complete beginner. So of course she could, if she felt like just stabbing me, she could, right? So it I was lucky in that my first exposure to actually having a fencing coach was a woman. So I never got the idea that women can't do it.
Yeah.
Right. But that was just luck. That wasn't built into anybody's strategy at all. So it's good to build these things in deliberately, I think.
It is, and also we need to remember, and we're coming to the thing I wanted to mention during this podcast. We need to remember that. Obviously, there are differences, physiological differences between men and women, but that doesn't mean that women are inferior fighters. In martial arts were, at least the historical one, were made for people to fight any size of the opponent, bigger one, taller one, stronger one, and winning with them. If you do it correctly, you can win with stronger opponents.
Absolutely.
With the proper technique.
Everything changes when you're murdering people with sharp weapons, right?
Yes.
So being bigger and stronger and having more endurance and perhaps being a bit quicker or whatever is a huge advantage, particularly in any kind of sporting combat, right? But it's much, much less important when sheer viciousness and willingness to kill is actually a relevant factor, right?
Yeah.
And when, someone can just cut your hamstring and down you go, and now you're shorter than they are because you're on the floor because they've cut your hamstring, right? I mean, it changes everything when the weapons are real, I think. And I think we get this unfair sort of misrepresentation of how important things like size and strength are when the weapons are not sharp.
That's right, but you can still work with that. And
absolutely, of course you can.
People are not robots. We are not from all the men are from one factory and women from the other, and all our skills and characteristics are the same. There will be guys who are, for example, weaker than some women. There will be women who are stronger than some guys who have bigger muscle mass. So it's it differs between people. It's not only that all the women are weaker than men, all the men are stronger than women.
If you've ever seen Simone Biles on a mat, you know beyond any reasonable shadow of a doubt that not all women are weaker than men.
Yeah, of course. And again, even with that, women, even if you are weaker than your opponent, you can still, with proper technique, you can
stab
still
them in
win.
the eye. Like, the whole point of having a sword is you don't need to be very strong to hit people with it and actually have them die.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, exactly. With a proper technique, you can still win, and I don't see why this weird notion that women are inferior fencers is there. But well, maybe I have idea, but
I agree with you. I agree with you. But it leads me to ask a question. What are your thoughts on having women-only tournaments? Or women's events? Like, so you've got the open tournament and then you've got the women-only tournament. What are your thoughts?
So, I'm of course, I'm really pro women-only tournaments because quite a lot of women are just scared fighting men, and I don't see why I don't know, to push them into open tournaments where again the guys are sometimes quite aggressive.
Sure.
And that's a problem with many tournaments, that men can be quite aggressive and hit very hard. I normally take part in open tournaments and in longsword tournaments and also in women tournaments, but I take part in both, and I must say that I got injured more in women tournaments than in open tournaments. Yes.
Okay.
But still, there is this. I don't know, if women feel better fighting in women-only tournaments, I don't see why not. It's only helps promoting going to tournaments.
Sure.
We won't have almost any, maybe, well, there will be some, for example, me and other women who take part in open tournaments, but we are the minority there still. But hopefully, with women tournaments, more women will see that tournaments are not super scary, because even in women tournaments, sometimes women are scared to take part. So maybe that will just show that tournaments are fun. They're not only I don't know, hitting each other on the head and then. So yeah, I hope that can only help. I would prefer everybody to fight everybody, but again. Okay,
so you see women's tournaments as a useful way of basically getting women who wouldn't go to an open tournament to at least go to a tournament and getting some experience that way, and maybe it will lead to...
Yeah, going to open tournaments and seeing that women also taking part in open tournaments. So I think that's quite good way of promoting that idea.
Okay, so just to get back to the unreasonably large sum of money.
Okay.
So you would spend it on creating SALs in the UK to start with, but also in Europe. Mm-hmm. And how would you make sure that the people who are creating the clubs that were going to be in those SALs, how would you make sure that that you didn't end up giving one of these SALs to, for example, a white supremacist group?
Well, I don't know. I never done it. But
no, it's just a thought, because it is a tricky problem. But you've got loads of money. You've got all the money in the world, so you can throw money at the problem if you need to.
Yeah. I think that's important to know the people you are giving this position of power to.
Yeah.
And not to just random fencer who might have a lot of medals or...
I have a thought, right? So your organisation, which has all this money, is going to be buying all of these beautiful, beautiful, gorgeous, Gothic barns and hallways and transforming them into these glorious SALs, some of which will, of course, also have stables attached so you can do mounted combat and what have you, of course, right?
Yep.
But how about if the organisations that use the spaces have to agree to a code of conduct which is really explicit about inclusivity and that sort of thing. Would that solve the problem?
I think it can, but we had that before in the UK. As there was organization which was trying to have this code of conduct for all the clubs which joined it. And it didn't work very well in the end, but not because people were not following it, just clubs weren't joining.
Okay.
And that was the problem. I think if that will be like some bigger organization which owns the clubs, that might work because they would be forced.
But also, if the joining some random organisation, let's say you have your own fencing club as you do, and you choose to join some like umbrella type organisation, and you get some maybe insurance and admin and whatever, and it's kind of it's not really such a big deal. But if the organisation is providing you with a gorgeous salle to train in, where you can leave all your gear and it's perfectly safe and everything, I think getting people to sign up would not be a problem.
No, I agree. I think that will be quite easy then.
Yeah.
So the thing is only that they need to follow it, and obviously that would be something which needs to be controlled. I don't know if that's the right word because I don't want to.
Okay. I don't know how Polish is related to Swedish, but I've noticed in a lot of Eastern European conversations I've had with Eastern European people, controlled is often used to mean to check, whereas in English it means to literally take control of. And so like passport control in Stockholm, for example, when you fly in, it's like controllare or something, and it means like to check.
No, you are right. As I said, it's probably not the right word, so it should be
checked
every now and then.
Yeah, I mean, one possibility would be if they kept, they have like the personal data of the people in the clubs, and that's anonymized, but the sort of demographic statistics are, and you need to have a certain proportion of, for example, women in the club to keep your lease, for instance.
Yeah. So
that gets into a legal quagmire, though.
It is.
It's really complicated. Well, tell you what you do. With all this money, you also have an entire team of lawyers to manage it for you.
Perfect. Thank you.
No, don't give money to lawyers. Never give money to lawyers. Unless you're being accused of a crime you didn't commit, in which case give money to lawyers. But other than that, no.
What about the crime I did commit?
Well, then you need to pay for the lawyer even more, and hopefully the crime was very lucrative so you can afford a good one. Brilliant. All right, okay. Well, thank you very much for joining me today, Emilia. It's been a delight talking to you.
Thank you very much. It was very fun talking to you.
Thanks for listening. You can find the episode show notes at swordschool.com/podcast, where you will find transcriptions, photos, videos, and links for this episode. You can find a direct link to the show notes for this episode in the description. Join us next week for another cracking conversation. See you then.